Perfect. All right, now that everyone is here, let's begin. Welcome to JDC West 2021 Accounting Case Presentation, sponsored by CPA. Thank you to our judges for attending this afternoon. We have Brian Schoonbart, Stefan Normando, Jennifer Marlowe, Chris Paulus, and Shelley Lukasiewicz. Competitors, you will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. My name is Nick, and I am the academic moderator who will be timekeeping and controlling overall flow of the presentation format. Time intervals will be noted in the Zoom chat by myself, beginning at the 10-minute mark. Following the presentation, I will facilitate question and answer period. Judges will indicate their intent to ask a question using the hand raised function, which I will call them to indicate the next question. No questions or comments will be permitted from the audience at any point in time. The audience is also prohibited from communicating to the presenters in any form, including the Zoom chat or via other mediums during the presentation or question and answer period. If you're an observer at this moment, I would like you to shut off your camera and please mute your microphone. Once the question and answer period is completed, the Zoom meeting will end. Competitors, good luck, and you're free to begin your presentation now.
Good afternoon, Krista, as well as Abby. I'm super excited to be representing Norgan Consulting Group with my colleagues Ethan and Anthony. We're going to be discussing how Code Ninjas can be programming for success and how you can move forward through these difficult times. So the first issue we want to address is the cash flow concerns. And of course, we can't ignore the COVID-19 pandemic. Lastly, we have to acknowledge the financing to continue this operation and ensure you're able to reach as many children as possible. Our recommendation consists of two facts. First, it'll be a short-term pivot to online teachings. This is going to include the integration of university students, replicating a similar model that has been successful. Additionally, we're recommending a traditional bank loan of $60,000 with 7.5% interest. Now, the impacts of this are exorbitant. First of all, you'll have 10 virtual courses per month. That means you're able to reach more children and bridge the gap between skill and knowledge. We hope for 2023, you'll be able to reach 25 underprivileged children. Bridging that gap between privilege will ensure more of the next generation is successful. And lastly, a successful repayment of the loan by 2026. And so how can Code Ninjas support the children of Burlington, Ontario, while ensuring profitability, sustainability, while focusing on the end user, that being the children, and addressing the COVID-19 pandemic? And so let's do an opportunity analysis. First, coding is the literacy of the 21st century. To ensure success for the future, you need to make sure that you consider that that is the newest trend forward. Additionally, Burlington received Canada's Best Community Award. This was determined by Maclean's magazine. This is a wonderful opportunity for you. Additionally, the COVID-19 pandemic is something that cannot be ignored. This pandemic has been a challenge for everyone, but it has an opportunity for growth. Now, the opportunity is to meet the demand and fill that gap of knowledge. This is going to ensure success for the future generation. Additionally, the Community Award will allow you to have a large amount of potential customers. This is going to greatly impact the demand and allow you to ensure you're reaching the most amount of children. And lastly, the COVID-19 pandemic. While it's been a challenge for all, it gives you an opportunity to pivot to an online delivery and really revolutionize the coding programs. And so what are the stakeholders and what parties need to be considered? Well, of course, we need to consider yourselves, friends, moms, and passionate. But we also need to consider students, parents, the bank, and Code Ninjas, the brand itself. However, without a long-term plan, financing, the stakeholders can't be supported. And so we need to put you on the best path forward. And that's what our recommendation does. So what strengths does Code Ninjas have that you can coattail on? Well, first, the competitive advantage, the in-person classes. This is unlike the other programs in the area and quite unlike programs across the globe, and this is a massive strength. Additionally, 500 locations worldwide, so it's well known and has a brand. And of course, the future focus. It focuses on that future generation, problem solving, skill building, and of course, that new literacy of the 21st century. But of course, there's some drawbacks to Code Ninjas. First of all, the single stream revenue. It's dependent on in-person classes, which the COVID-19 pandemic has threatened. Of course, the modest marketing plan. Well, usually a modest marketing plan can work. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, larger marketing budgets need to be accounted for because this is how you're going to grab more demand. And of course, the stagnant projected enrollment. With that Best Community Award, many families are moving into the area. And so we want you to capitalize on that growth instead of having projected enrollment that is rather flat. So we did analyze the competitors, and we saw two that closely compete and two not so much. Future Academy competes closely as it has relatively similar programs, but it's not in the area. However, Engineering for Kids is in the area since 2018. However, it doesn't have as many programs, and its focus on after school and helping out youth after school isn't as great. And Bricks for Kids and E2 Youth Engineers is focused on Lego, not coding. And so where can you go? Well, your engagement enrollment can increase, allowing you to increase your revenues and allocate that for increased reach. This includes marketing and as well as your online platform. Additionally, you're projecting children of all privileges to success. Now, the decision criteria are four: profitability, sustainability of the model for the long term, end user focused, children focused, and the COVID-19 consideration. And so when we look, you can wait or you can offer. And offering is the only way forward because COVID is unpredictable. So who will teach? What will you teach? And how will it benefit the children? And Ethan's going to delve into that a little later into the recommendation. Now, there are ways that how can this be financed? And so that can be the bank loan, $60,000, 7.5 interest rate, and amortized over 5 years. The line of credit, which we're not recommending, that personal liability, as well as you putting up your own homes to finance this, is just not an option. And the personal credit cards. Well, this could be done. That interest rate is so large. We don't want you to have that personal liability. And so now I'm going to let Ethan quantitatively analyze what our recommendation looks and what it can do for you.
Thank you, Sonia. Now, Abby and Crystal, after we addressed the qualitative factors and understood your franchise a little bit better, we realized that you were asking us for both accounting and financing recommendations. Not only that, but also a business strategy to address the current COVID pandemic and how it has resulted in a dramatic change in your business. Now, the recommendation that I'm going to make today covers both of these things. And in short, what you need to do is a short-term pivot, as this is going to be necessary for your franchise to be successful in the long term. So I will discuss that in detail. What are we recommending? Well, first of all, we absolutely recommend moving forward with virtual classes. There is a lot of uncertainty despite the current vaccine rollout as to how COVID will evolve in the Canadian landscape. So first of all, we're recommending online classes, but we know, Abby, Crystal, that you were both concerned about who would teach them, who would develop the curriculum, and what would they look like? Well, we believe that university students are the best vessel as to which to deliver this education. University students that are in an undergraduate STEM degree that are passionate about what they teach, passionate about education, would be excellent for teaching the Code Ninja virtual courses at your franchise. Now, what about the curriculum? What about the material? Who's going to develop it? Well, first of all, we were surprised for you to tell us that Code Ninjas has been very strict about the usage of its current in-class paper curriculum digitally. We believe that Code Ninjas needs to evolve given the current COVID-19 pandemic. And so we ask that you continue to advocate for Code Ninjas for portions of that curriculum to be transformed for digital and online use. However, we recognize that given that Code Ninjas is very protective of this intellectual property, a contingency plan needs to be in place, in which case we recommend that you use the university student instructors themselves, develop the curriculum that will be taught, which we believe is manageable given the age of the children, prior to the beginning of the online instruction of the Code Ninja courses at your franchise. Now, that sounds fantastic, but we need to look at the numbers because, as we accountants like to say, the numbers don't lie. Now, I'll go into the projections later, but they have been altered significantly as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are very confident that that virtual offering will improve cash flow dramatically and give you a new revenue stream. So I'm going to walk through what assumptions we put in here to arrive at this $131,000 revenue figure, which we believe is achievable in 2021. Now, we know you were considering about 6 courses per month, but given how significantly your in-class options are going to decline as a result of COVID, we believe that you should scale a little bit more than that and look to achieve 10 total courses per month. Now, these are all going to happen once a week, which would result in a total of 24 one-hour individual classes happening per week with 8 students per course on the lower end. So this maintains the excellent instruction throughout the process. There'll also be a one-time setup cost of $700, assuming that Code Ninjas does not allow its intellectual property to be transformed for digital use. So this cost involves the university students developing the curriculum. Furthermore, we set a $20 wage rate, an hourly wage rate for those instructors. We know you were looking at about $14.50. However, we believe that this will incentivize university students and will also reward them, as instructing children on Zoom is not going to be incredibly easy. Furthermore, we've arrived at a fee of $170 per class. Again, this is on a higher end of the range of the other different options that you provide us, and I will discuss later why we believe that you should move forward with 170. So now that we know that there is significant profitability to be found in this virtual revenue stream with university students, you asked us to look at your projections. Well, first of all, I am sorry to tell you, we do believe that we anticipate a 50% drop in your revenue from your in-class portions. This is primarily going to be a result of parents not going to be comfortable sending their children. And given that your customer base has far more affluent parents, they are likely to be working at home anyways, and so are not necessarily going to be concerned with the drop-in services of your Code Ninjas franchise. In the projections, we also believe that parties and events need to be eliminated and not even considered as a revenue source until 2022 at the latest. Furthermore, we've reduced merchandise sales by 30%, drop-in registration by 50. And as we just discussed, we do believe that there will be $131,000 of 2021 revenue from the virtual classes revenue stream. Furthermore, we've reduced usage-dependent expenses in your projection. So I'm referring to utilities, to cleaning, and anything else that is essentially dependent on the square footage of the building that you are currently leasing. So I want to talk about why we are telling you for the virtual class option to opt for the higher end of the pricing range, and also for your drop-in and other fees to maintain the current pricing structure. What has been incredibly interesting throughout the pandemic is seeing that Canadian savings rates have increased dramatically, in fact, up to 28%. This means that your more affluent customer base in the Ontario and in the Toronto suburban area has far more disposable income than before. So since you are targeting them already, they're going to have no issue with the current pricing structure and are going to be willing to pay for it. Now, you also asked about a loan because you do need to purchase some computers and equipment for your operation. Sonia discussed what were the qualitative factors when we considered, and indeed we have decided to move ahead with the bank loan. And just to make it clear to you, that's going to be about a $15,000 annual loan payment, and that has been accounted for in the projections that we've made. So when we look at the overall impact of the projections, we can glean a couple things about the future of your Code Ninjas franchise. So indeed, you believe that cash flow is going to significantly change as a result of COVID, and it has. We can see the breakdown in terms of revenue, and despite the fact that we are very confident in the success of this virtual revenue model that we're recommending today, there's going to be a significant cash shortfall. You also told us that you were incredibly concerned about this sponsorship program as far as sponsoring lower income, underprivileged children and getting them into the Code Ninjas coding curriculum. We understand, we think that's fantastic. However, given the current state of your business and what these projections indicate, we do believe that you should postpone the sponsorship program until the cash flow improves, because once that does, that will only mean the quality of your services will go up and these children will be getting a far better education. And we can see positive and excellent cash flow of $138,000 in 2023. However, unfortunately, these numbers do tell us that we believe additional financing is going to be required to address your working capital needs. Now, the two of you currently have $40,000 saved up that is able to finance your working capital throughout the next few months. However, based on the figures that we have here, while also considering the startup financing and the money that you put into the business, we estimate that you will need $110,000 to make up the cash shortfall throughout the next 2 years or so, unless the COVID situation changes dramatically. Now, given the scope of time that we had to review your situation, we are just going to put forward some options that we believe that you should consider for this financing. There are a number of emergency benefit programs, such as the Canada Emergency Business Account and the Canadian Emergency Rent Subsidy, that we believe you should consider, given that the cost of your lease is quite significant, and this would help with cash flow. Furthermore, another bank loan would certainly be reasonable. And both your personal financial situations are likely to be different, but depending on your comfort level, you could utilize additional savings to finance this shortfall. So next, we'll have Anthony discuss how exactly is this plan going to be put into motion.
Thank you so much, Ethan. So the first step is to start recruiting university students, and we estimate that this will take up until the last quarter of 2020 to go through the entire screening process, including interviews, background checks, and making sure that they have the necessary qualifications. And once the instructors have been hired, they must be provided with the necessary training and be given ample time to translate Code Ninja's curriculum to an online environment. As Ethan mentioned, and you guys said, Code Ninjas will not provide this for you. Next, from November until the opening in mid-January, you will want to transition your marketing efforts to focus completely on digital channels to maximize engagement, as conventional channels like in-person events are unavailable. And once training has been completed and sufficient marketing has been performed, you can then start online offering of the Code Ninja curriculum until around July, when it is estimated that the vaccine will be widely distributed. And by that time, we believe that social distancing guidelines will be eased. So around July of 2021, you can finally start the in-person offering of the Code Ninja curriculum. And finally, some long-term considerations. At the same time, you want to look at the possibility of a combination of in-person and online offering, as the pandemic is unpredictable and you will want to account for unforeseen circumstances like late distribution of the vaccine or a spike in cases. And once the business is well established, once again, we will believe that you can start looking at the program for underprivileged kids and secure that support from the local tech community, as you will be in a better position to make these considerations and ultimately help as many kids as possible. And finally, we want to look at to continue to advocate for Code Ninja to provide these online resources, because it is likely that even as the world transitions to a more normal state, there will be some changes from the online environment that will be long staying. So we want to make sure that Code Ninja is as adaptable as possible. And some accounting considerations. You wanted to know whether you were recording the proper expenses in your financial statement. So we will go over that right now. The first item is the potential capitalization of the lease on the ActivityPlex that you will be running in-person activities in. Under ASPE, it is possible to capitalize these costs if one of 4 conditions are met. And I would love to go over these conditions if you guys have any questions about them later. But if one or more of these conditions are met, the lease can be capitalized and recorded as an asset rather than an expense. Next, you incurred some construction costs, and obviously there will be interest costs associated with this. So you can actually capitalize these interest costs. So costs incurred to bring the asset to its required condition and location, and you will capitalize the amount of interest that was incurred during the period when the expenditures were incurred for the construction. And next, as Ethan mentioned, you guys will be purchasing equipment for $60,000, including computers and such. So each year you will depreciate this equipment, and this will hit your income statement as an expense. And next, franchise fees. Currently, you have expensed the full amount of the franchise fees you paid to run the Code Ninja business on your income statement. So actually, the current value of the franchise payment can be recorded as an intangible asset rather than expensed. But there will be an amortization expense related to this that will be recorded each year based on the estimated useful life of the franchise. And finally, some revenue recognition concerns. You have provided several options for payment, such as one month, 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year. But you cannot recognize the revenue on these payments right away, as you have not offered these services as of yet. So once you receive payment, it is set up as an unearned revenue liability on the financial statements, and you can only recognize it as revenue once each kid drops in for a class based on a pro rata of the months in advance they have paid. So going into some risks and mitigations, the most key risk we have identified is a spike in COVID cases, as the pandemic is unpredictable, and this likelihood is pretty medium, but the impact will be high. But we believe this can be mitigated by continuing to offer courses online, as we said, and just being adaptable to the situation. And next, the next risk we have identified is reduced signups due to marketing limitations, because you are unable to go to those in-person events. We believe this will be mitigated by focusing on digital marketing channels. And finally, the last risk is increased pressure from the competition, because we will not be reducing our prices. And we believe that this will be mitigated due to our mission statement of helping as many kids as possible and our diversified offerings, that being in person and online, which sets us apart from the competition. Finally, some key performance indicators. We want to offer 10 virtual courses per month. We want to serve 25 underprivileged kids by 2023, and we want to see the full repayment of that $60,000 loan by the end of its term in 2026.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Again, let's reiterate those issues that we addressed right at the beginning. First, having those cash flow concerns. And of course, we can't ignore the COVID-19 pandemic. Lastly, the financing for the equipment, including laptops. Now, the recommendation that we put forth, and that Ethan went into detail, was a short-term pivot to online teachings. This included the integration of university students and curriculum building. Of course, we also advocated for the advocation for online teachings of Code Ninjas. The financing recommendation we put forth was the traditional loan of $60,000 with 7.5% interest. This was due to the fact we don't want you to have exorbitant amounts of personal liability, and this loan is suitable for your needs. The impacts are 10 virtual courses, 25 underprivileged children reached, and the successful repayment of the loan. 2020 was the year of the pandemic. 2021 is the year of innovation, where you can take your passion, your motherhood, and your future all in one for business sustainability.
Thank you very much, competitors. We will now open the floor up to any questions from the judges. We can start with Chris.
Hi, I have a question about your decision criteria. I'm curious why you chose to prioritize profitability over cash flows, given the cash flow concerns raised.
Of course, I will gladly address that one. We chose profitability as an all-encompassing. You can take that profitability and move it towards your cash flow. Again, the cash flow was one of those immediate issues, but ensuring that you are in the long term able to help bridge that gap between knowledge and skill for the kids should be the utmost priority.
Thank you very much. I will now call upon Jennifer for the next question.
I have a question about your feasibility slide for the recommendation to go to the virtual offering. I think it has a fee per class of $170, and I just wanted to confirm whether the forecast was based on $170 per course.
Yes, sorry, my apologies. That slide is not up and I do not quite remember what it said. But indeed, you are correct that it is for $170 per course. And then just to confirm, in line with what you told us, that is going to be good for one class each week for a period of 1 month is what the $170 will get you. And that is indeed what we considered.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'll now call upon Stefan for the next question.
Great. For your I guess your assessed projections for revenue, for the kind of like the in-class revenue, I can see like obviously every year it's kind of increasing, and then it's also for your virtual, it seems like that's also increasing year to year. What kind of mitigations do you have for the risk of like market cannibalization?
Yeah, I can address that question. So right now, your mission statement is to help as many kids as possible. And that was a big consideration in why we didn't want to decrease costs, because we believe that that will differentiate us from the competition, just that we want to provide as many kids with this future literacy as possible. And as well, we believe that the diversification provided by the online offering as well as in-person offering will differentiate us from the competition and will prevent that market cannibalization.
Thank you. We'll next call upon Brian for the next question. Brian?
Yes, thank you. when you did your analysis of the current expenses, did you think there was any opportunities to reduce any of those in the shorter term to help with the cash flow issues?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I think the main opportunity, and again, that income statement that you provided us with does appear to be on a cash basis. So it would be nice to glean some more information as to whether it might be accrual or a cash basis income statement. I think the biggest opportunity for expenses there is going to be, since right now there's going to be a lot of virtual classes being offered, is that any usage dependent expenses, which is to say anything related to utilities, to cleaning, to office supplies, are going to be significantly reduced. And another opportunity, which we did not necessarily factor into our analysis, is that most tutoring and education childcare centers are actually still open, albeit with significant capacity restrictions. So once you open, you are going to be operating just at a much smaller scale than before with those in-person classes. So therefore, you're also going to have less people on the floor that are educating the children. So that will also reduce your salary expenses as well. So there's a multitude of opportunities there.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. For the last question, we'll call upon Shelley. Shelley? Oh, Shelley, you're muted.
Yeah, so could you give me a better understanding of the expenses that we're going to incur for the virtual offerings?
I will gladly take that question. The biggest thing to consider with these virtual offerings is that wage rate that we've set for the university students. Additionally, there would be a cost associated with the recruiting of these individuals and the scanning of these individuals. And that's all dependent on what medium you do want to scan through these individuals. If you're using Google postings of jobs and such, it will have a lower cost. But if you're personally going to these universities as a recruiting staff to hire them, there will be salary associated with this. But the largest thing to consider with the online offering is the fact that the $60,000 equipment is being used towards this. Additionally, the $20 per university student, which will help build the curriculum if Code Ninjas is not willing to. And so those were the main expenses that we considered when moving online.
So is there no cost?
Sorry, thank you very much. Sorry, we're out of time for Q&A right now. Thank you very much, competitors and judges. Feel free to stick in the Zoom call if you would like to further discuss and deliberate everything that's happened over the day. Thank you very much.